Today I'd like to show you this Magnum Ultimate Double Hung. I believe Marvin produced these from 2005 to 2018, but don't quote me on that. And don't let this small suitcase sample fool you. These came in gigantic sizes. I've seen these windows and I've worked on some of these that were a lot bigger than I am. These things could be extremely heavy, so if you're working on a big one, make sure you have a partner to help you with it. I want to show you how to change out the balance tubes, how to adjust it, and basically just take the whole window apart. So let's get started. First thing I would like to do is show you how to remove the sashes. And if you didn't know what a sash is, the glass and the wood frame it attached to is called a sash. Typically on these old double hungs, you would unlock the window first, open it up 3 or 4 inches, and then you had the little tab here that you can move out, and then it would tilt out, and then you can remove it. This one has a stop that we have to remove, and I want to show you how to remove that. Hopefully you can see here, there is a screw here, and we have one missing here. I'm going to go ahead and remove these screws. And that's about how long they are. They're going to be short. Now we'll make sure the window's unlocked. We'll lift the sash up, and there's going to be more screws down here. Okay, with those removed, this one will come off. Now with those screws removed, we can go ahead and remove this piece. Hopefully you can see this here. There's a tilt latch right here. There's one on each side. You can take a thin putty knife and put that in there like that to push these little latches in like that. Then you can take the sash and tilt it towards you, just like that. Okay, with the sash completely flat, you never want to take the sash out like this or like this because the springs can launch and you can have a real bad day. So make sure it's flat, lift straight up, and then you can take it out and set it to the side. And if you ever have to replace these pins, they're labeled. This one says BR for bottom sash right, and this one here says BL for bottom sash left. So if you ever have to replace those, make sure they're in the proper spot. So in order to get this top sash out, you have to remove these 2 stops here. So we'll go ahead. I like using a stiffened, sharpened putty knife, and we can put that between this right here. This obviously popped out really easy. If these were painted, you may want to take a utility knife and score any stain or paint that you may see there. So these just pop off. Please note which one is left and right. So now that we got those out, we need to take these bottom pieces out. Now you got those out, now we need to remove these pieces because you can see here, with this in the way, this cannot tilt out because that is in the way. So first I'm going to go ahead and remove this weather stripping. And please note the orientation. This little bulb weather stripping here is a little offset, so make sure you put what's left and what is right. Now I like to go ahead and take these clutches and move them up out of the way before I forget. Please keep in mind that these are under a lot of tension. So we're going to take a flat screwdriver, we're going to put our hand here, and we're going to turn this a 1/4 turn. That will allow this to go up and down. So we'll go ahead and remove these pieces here. Okay, I turn this window around just to show you this little seam here. I'm going to go ahead and take my putty knife and pop them out this way. Hopefully you can see this here. That pops out. We're going to move the top sash down. There's 2 little tilt latches here. Move those in. Make sure the sash is completely flat, just like we took out the bottom one. Don't take it out like this, and don't take it out like that. Make sure it's flat. Go straight up, tilt it to the side, and then you can remove it. And then hopefully you can see here, if you ever have to replace that, it says TL, stands for top left, which is from the outside looking in, and this pin here says top right. If you ever have to replace these balance tubes, we'll go ahead and release the tension on these top springs as well. Again, keep in mind there's a lot of tension under the spring, especially when these are huge. Put your hand on top of a flat screwdriver, put it in there, do a 1/4 turn, and that allows this to move freely. Now if we want to, we can remove these components. If you ever have to replace this bottom tube, go ahead and remove this cover. Just take a flat screwdriver. That pops right off. So now we'll go ahead and detach this bottom clutch from this balance tube. You can use a pair of pliers or you can use this handy dandy wind tool. It goes on these 2 little hooks here, just like that. You can go ahead and unscrew it from the top. Now if you're replacing one of these balance tubes, more than likely it's because it's broken. And oftentimes this machine screw here is going to be bent or broken. And if it's bent or broken, that's fine. You can go ahead and throw it away. When you replace the new tube, just use a really long screw, and in the hole that's here, just move it up a little further because This screw goes into one of these little T-nuts here, and you don't want to try to put a wood screw through that because it's just going to spin out. So just to point that out to you. Also on this balance tube, it's going to give you all the information that you need along with your original order number, and it's going to give you the size of the tube and the weight of it. So if you ever have to replace the top balance tube, go ahead and remove this weather stripping here, and please note where you have it, which is which side and which way you take it off. Now with that removed, we can go ahead and remove this cover. Also take note which way you take these off too. I've actually set these down and put them on upside down by accident, just so you'll be mindful of that. We'll go ahead and detach the clutch from this, just by doing that, letting that fall out of the way. Go ahead and take these screws out. Same thing, size is on the tube so you know what it goes to. Now I'm going to show you how to remove the jamb liners and these clutches if you need to replace those. Sometimes you can just take your fingers and pull this out. If you can't do that, go ahead and take a flat bar or putty knife. Try to get this started, and once you get that out, you take your putty knife behind it and help assist this off, and then just pull it down on it just like that. And now you have the whole jamb liner. So if you need to replace this or these clutches, this is how you do it. They only go in one way, or you can put in them upside down, I suppose. And if you need to replace this, don't forget on the top sash, there's a stop that needs to go back in there. It prevents the top sash from going all the way down. Also, there is this bumper here on this side. This is there by design. This is to prevent the bottom sash from going all the way up. The lock doesn't damage the head jamb parting stop here. We're pretending we've got a brand new one. We're replacing all these components. Hopefully you can see this on the back side. There is a connecting barb here. Looks like a little arrow. And there's a kerf that runs along this whole jamb here. So we need to make sure that all this is back in place. Make sure it's pushed all the way in there. Go ahead and put our top balance tube in. Make sure the hole lines up with the existing hole. Now this is how you adjust these particular balance tubes. Marvin actually has a specialty tool that goes on here. If your top sash is very heavy and you want to add more tension to it, we'll go ahead and we got this wind tool. We're going to wind this clockwise. And when you go clockwise, that's going to tighten it up tighter to put more tension on it. Or if you need less tension, just go counterclockwise. Okay, we got that reattached. Go ahead and put this little cover back on here. So before we put this cover back on, I want you to see this little kerf here. That little groove actually goes on this little groove here. Hopefully you can see this. It fits on there like that. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that's in there all the way. We're going to take it all the way to the top, and we'll go ahead and push that in. And we'll go ahead and put the weather stripping back in there. We'll put our top tube in. Make sure that screw hole lines up with that. Got our little hook here on this little part here. And if you have to tighten it up, give it more tension, you can go ahead and wind it up if you need to. We'll go ahead and make sure this bar fits along this block and into this clutch. Now this one has that same little kerf on there, except that's going to go on the opposite side here. We got that in there, nice. Go ahead and just push that in. So now that we replace this, we need to make sure that our clutch, our balance tube is all the way down like this, and make sure that both sides are even. Keep in mind, again, there's a lot of tension. I'm gonna go here, do that quarter turn, because we're simulating the tilting of the sash. And we're going to do the other side too. So before we put this top sash back in place, I like to use my #3 most used tool, and I am not a paid sponsor for Pledge. So I'm going to go ahead and spray some on a paper towel, or actually a lot. Make sure it's saturated. Now, if your window isn't painted or stained, do not do this till after it's been painted or stained. I like to go ahead, wipe the sides down, wipe this weather stripping down, wipe the sides of the sash down. And it's also important, these little top tilt latches go in this little groove here. So sometimes there's a lot of dirt in there. So make sure that even this little kerf here is wiped down. So with the clad to the exterior, we'll go ahead and make sure that these pins are above these clutches. We'll lay it flat like that. Give it a little love tap right here to make sure it's seated properly. And then move these little latches in. So now with that in, I go ahead and wipe down this check roll weather stripping. And with the sash all the way up, I'm going to go ahead and wipe in these grooves here. And this makes a huge difference on how a lot of these operate. Just even dirt a little bit of dirt in there can cause these not to slide up and down nicely. With our top sash in, we can go ahead and put our wood stops back on. Go ahead and pop these in. As you can see, fits in there, it fits in this groove. I go ahead and I like to try to get this edge started in that little groove there. Okay, with the bevel to the exterior, see this little lip here? That little lip has got to go behind this little stop here. Okay, it goes in there behind there like that. Edge here, it goes behind here. Okay, since we replaced these balance tubes, we want to make sure that these clutches are the same. So before I put that sash in, I'm going to go ahead and wipe in here. So we'll go ahead and take a screwdriver. We'll move this down, do a quarter turn, and then we're going to measure from here to here to make sure it's the same as over here. Okay, measure from there to there. Make sure this one's the same. It's within 1/8 of an inch, that's okay. Go ahead and we'll wipe the sides of this sash down along with these little tabs here. Make sure that's clean. It's important to clean this groove because these are spring loaded. Any dirt that gets trapped in there, as the sash travels up, it's down like this. They're being pushed in, but when you go down on it, any dirt wants to take this tap and wants to try to pull it out, and it'll act like it's broken when it's not. So we'll go ahead, clean that. Make sure the little pivot pins here are above these clutches. Make sure it's seated in there properly. Give it a little love tap, go up. You can push these with your fingers or even use those little putty knives. Push that in. Oh, I didn't seat it properly. That's why it's important to seat that properly. So let me tilt the sash back out again. Okay, we'll go ahead and put the side trim pieces on. Go ahead and put these back on the same way we took them off. Well, there you have it. That's about everything I could think of to show you on a Magnum Ultimate Double Hung. And if you found that this video helped you out, please consider hitting the subscribe button. Thank you for watching and have a great day.